Okay, so you want to own a McDonald's. You find a location, hire a crew, sell burgers, and collect the profits. But here's the strange part. You are not really buying a burger restaurant. You are buying access to a machine that controls the brand, the menu, the real estate, the standards, and a large part of your economics. And the more successful that machine becomes, the less freedom you have inside it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what a McDonald's franchise costs, where the money actually goes, why the margins can be so attractive, why some owners still end up in bankruptcy, and how a franchise can turn into a serious multi-million-dollar business. Now, the first surprise is the entry price. A typical American franchise is not something you start with your savings account and a dream. McDonald's currently says candidates generally need at least $750,000 in net, non-borrowed, unencumbered personal funds. That is before the recommended $100,000 in working capital per restaurant and $75,000 for relocation. And that money does not guarantee you a restaurant. There are also no passive investors in the normal US model. McDonald's expects you to operate the business. You also complete 6 to 12 months of training, and you may have to relocate. So think of the entry tiers this way. One restaurant is already a 7-figure economic commitment once the purchase, equipment, working capital, and financing are included. A multi-unit operator moves into several $million of capital, and a large operator can control dozens or hundreds of locations, turning a restaurant business into a portfolio business. The hidden cost is control. McDonald's can require reinvestment, remodels, equipment upgrades, and strict operating standards. You own the business, but you do not own the rules. That distinction explains almost everything. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? Imagine you run a lemonade stand. You sell one cup for $3. After ingredients and labor, perhaps $1 remains. Now imagine the same customer comes back every day. The important number is no longer the price of one cup. It is the profit produced by repeated transactions. McDonald's is that idea multiplied by enormous volume. In 2025, McDonald's had 45,356 restaurants worldwide. About 95% were franchised. That means the corporation can collect rent and royalties from thousands of operators without running every kitchen itself. And here's the clever part. McDonald's does not need your restaurant to have a giant profit margin. It needs your sales to remain healthy. The corporation's franchise revenue comes mainly from rent, royalties, and initial fees. So if your restaurant sells more burgers, the system above you generally makes more money too. This is the core mechanism. The industry calls it a royalty. A royalty is simply a payment tied to your sales for the right to operate under the brand. Then there is rent. In many McDonald's arrangements, the company also earns rent from the restaurant property. So imagine your restaurant produces $3 million in annual sales. You are not keeping $3 million. Food takes a slice. Labor takes another. Utilities, repairs, insurance, technology, taxes, delivery costs, and local expenses keep eating. Then McDonald's takes its contractual rent and royalty. What remains is your operating profit. Now make the restaurant better. Suppose sales rise from $3 million to $3.5 million. Many costs rise too, but some costs do not rise nearly as fast. That extra revenue can therefore carry a surprisingly large amount of incremental profit. This is operating leverage. In plain English, once the kitchen and staff are already there, additional sales can become disproportionately valuable. And that is why location matters so much. A mediocre restaurant with great traffic can outperform a beautiful restaurant nobody visits. Now comes the part customers never see. McDonald's is an operating system disguised as a restaurant. The menu is standardized. Kitchen procedures are standardized. Training is standardized. Technology is standardized. Even the way food moves through the kitchen is engineered for speed and consistency. The industry calls this standardization. It means the customer should get roughly the same experience whether they are buying a Big Mac in Texas or another country thousands of miles away. But there is another system underneath it. Data. The app knows what customers order. Promotions can be targeted. Digital ordering reduces friction. Drive-through design reduces waiting. Loyalty programs encourage another visit. And limited-time products create reasons to return. The strange psychological trick is simple. You are not trying to convince someone to discover McDonald's. They already know it. You are trying to make choosing it easier than choosing something else. That makes the brand incredibly powerful. But it also creates a vulnerability. The franchisee has enormous fixed obligations while customers remain price sensitive. And that is where the failures begin. Consider Willard Congrove. In 2001, McDonald's determined his financial position was critical. He controlled 2 restaurants. McDonald's valued the restaurants at roughly $700,000, but Congrove's liabilities exceeded $1.5 million. He voluntarily terminated both franchises. McDonald's later paid about $768,000 toward various debts. Then, in August 2001, Congrove filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The lesson is brutal. A recognizable brand cannot rescue an over-leveraged owner. The golden arches can bring customers. They cannot erase debt. Now consider Rice Enterprises in Pittsburgh. In 2023, the longtime 8-unit McDonald's franchise filed Chapter 11. The company employed about 435 people. Its bankruptcy filing listed between $10 million and $50 million in assets, against $1 million to $10 million in liabilities. But this was not simply a bad burger year. The company was dealing with major legal costs and litigation connected to a former manager. The bankruptcy filing was designed to preserve its franchise agreements and leases while restructuring its obligations. Different problem, same lesson. A franchise gives you a powerful machine. It does not give you immunity from lawsuits, debt, labor problems, or bad management. And there is another uncomfortable number. In 2022, more than 1,750 McDonald's locations changed hands. Sources reported roughly 400 franchisees sold stores that year. Some operators were cashing out at high valuations. Others were leaving because the operating environment had become exhausting. That tells you something important. The business can be extremely valuable and still be a terrible lifestyle for the wrong owner. So what does the real payoff look like? Let's build two simplified scenarios. Scenario 1. You acquire one existing restaurant for $2.5 million. You put in $750,000 of your own capital and finance the rest. Suppose the restaurant produces $3.2 million in annual sales. After food, labor, occupancy, royalties, repairs, insurance, taxes, and other operating expenses, imagine $300,000 remains as annual owner cash flow before financing and personal taxes. That is a 12% cash return on the purchase price. If performance stays strong, your initial equity could theoretically be recovered in about 2.5 years before debt service and taxes. Real life is messier. Remodels happen, sales fall, interest rates move, and one broken piece of equipment never breaks when you have nothing else to do. Now scale it. Suppose you own 10 restaurants averaging $3.2 million in sales. That is $32 million in annual system-wide sales. At the same hypothetical 9% owner cash flow margin, that is about $29 million before financing and personal taxes. You are no longer just operating restaurants. You are managing capital, managers, real estate, labor, and a portfolio of locations. That is where the economics become interesting. The corporation gets paid from thousands of restaurants. The biggest franchise operators try to copy the same logic. Buy good locations, standardize operations, spread overhead, use data, reinvest, then repeat. One of the clearest modern examples is Greg Flynn. He started Flynn Group in 1999 with 8 Applebee's restaurants. By 2026, Flynn Group had more than 3,000 units across multiple brands and more than $5 billion in annual sales. That is not one restaurant becoming a little bigger. That is a business model becoming an operating platform. And now the opening paradox makes sense. You thought you were buying a McDonald's. You were really buying a highly standardized cash flow system, wrapped inside a franchise agreement, financed with your own capital and someone else's rules. The brand gives you demand. The system gives you consistency. Scale gives you leverage, but debt, labor, lawsuits, reinvestment, and bad locations can take all of it back. That is the economics of owning a McDonald's franchise. The golden arches can make the money machine powerful, but the franchisee still has to survive the machine.